Hello and welcome to SKB Shots. ఎక్కువ మాట్లాడక్కర్లేదు ఇంకా వాయిస్ ఆఫ్ క్రికెట్ ఇన్స్పిరేషన్ ఫర్ మెనీ జనరేషన్స్. Harsha Bhogle is with us. So thank you for doing this with me. And
Thank you.
first question is, we have seen this vernacular commentary coming into picture. Cricket started this and all the other sports are picking it up. Next 5 years, how do you see this growing, exploding with every year there is an ICC event?
Future ante vernacular andi. I mean, I mentioned that line specifically in Telugu because I've always believed, I believe since I started, we are not an English-speaking country. English is a language that links people together, but we are not an English-speaking country. So the future will be in language commentary because you're giving commentary to the people in a language that they understand, that culturally they understand. The references they understand much better. Sometimes in English you don't always understand the references. So I'll be very surprised if the future isn't very bright. And I think it's a fabulous opportunity for people in the language commentary space to make a mark.
Right. When you talk about the local language, we see a lot of literary references coming in and pop culture references coming up. And sometimes there is an entertainment tone to what we do in the commentary. That's what we get the criticism from. So how do you maintain those points of parity and difference when you compare that with the pure English commentary that people are used to listen to?
See, essentially we are telling the story of the game.
Right.
How you tell the story of the game is subjective. You can tell it in the way that comes easily to you, but without ever diminishing what you're showing or what is being shown on screen. And I think all great commentary comes to you through a great producer. The producer is the bank,
Right.
and the commentary is the river that flows between the bank. The river cannot overflow. If the river overflows, it becomes self-indulgent, and then you start projecting yourself rather than the game. We always live within the confines of the game and the picture, and within those two limits, we tell the story that we can, but you never lose a ball, you never lose sight of the fact that you're here to tell the story of the game.
Right.
So if you can do that, then you've got an individual style that works, and the more different individual styles there are, the better it is.
Right, and now when we talk about vernacular commentary, there is something that is again coming up: the digital space that is growing and increasing. Initially, we used to watch or consume cricket on newspapers, and radio came in, then TV came in, and now we have apps which are streaming cricket. And some of the nations they don't even have a TV broadcast. And for the IPL, we have two different things happening in two different spaces. So, how does this impact vernacular commentary?
I think it's just more opportunities. The more different mediums that you have, the greater the number of people that are required. But it will also require the great skill to adapt across mediums. Where it's like saying, I have to tell the story of a game in 200 words, and I have to tell the story of a game in 2,000 words. So can I adapt across formats? In commentary, I'm bound by a certain structure. On television. On digital, it depends. If I've got the game in front of me, then I'm still equally bound. There may not be enough commercials. But for example, what we do on CricBuzz is a completely different format where we don't have any action to show. So we've converted the limitation into a strength by saying that we will be chatty, we'll be friendly, we'll be storytellers. I remember in Hyderabad, we all used to sit, just Irani chai pee ke baith ke baatein kar rahe the. We used to chat like that.
Right.
So we said, can we make it chatty? So that was another format. So you'll find that these different formats will come, but at each point, the broadcaster has to adapt to the requirement.
So we have spoken about advertising. We have spoken about the new medium that is coming into picture. Now, when we talk about this coming in, do you think the advent of new medium will actually send one of the formats into the next stage of the life cycle?
As in T20 ODIs or Test match cricket, I'm not so sure, because the ODI, and I've said this for many years, the ODI has 100 natural stoppages. And in a game that is governed by advertising revenue as opposed to subscription revenue, if it's governed by advertising revenue, you're looking at as many advertising slots as possible. The only change that could happen is if viewership drops, if advertising rates start to drop so much, and then people start to think, oh, it's not actually worth it. But otherwise, I don't see, from a commercial point of view, I don't see the ODI going away that quickly, especially because the ODI World Cup final still remains the pinnacle of the sport.
Right. So, but again, when we speak about cricket, when we speak about the stories and also the narrative that we get out, and people actually want more and more action. So, do you think bilateral series and all will actually have a problem, especially when we start viewing on the mobile?
It could, but I think the bilateral series will have a problem more because of the domestic T20 leagues. And it's something I've thought for a while, but you can see with what's happened in South Africa, that the first step has already been taken. We don't mind losing qualification points for the World Cup, but we need to remain financially self-sufficient, because They hope that the T20 leagues will become financially self-sufficient. Already in the new FTP, you're seeing windows put aside for domestic T20 leagues. So bilateral will have to live in the spaces that are thus created. So there's a conflict in the sense that I think countries are not that keen to play bilateral cricket. They want to because their television rights come from there, but it's not their number one priority. But for the ICC, they have to ensure that there's enough bilateral cricket because that is a cricket that they control because it eventually leads to a 50-over World Cup final or a 20-over World Cup. So there is this conflict between the staging nations. There are many conflicts. This is one of those between the host countries and the ICC that somehow they will have to resolve. I think everybody is hoping that within this confusion and chaos, something will sort itself out. But now with every country having its T20 league, I think there's going to be a head-to-head clash.
With two separate companies, let us say broadcasting platforms, are going for the same sport. Do you think the dominant stakeholder of the sport, the fan, is more empowered now?
And I wish it always is that way. But I'll be very keen to see whether they are customizing the feed across two different formats because there will still be one world feed. But I don't know if they will customize the feed. Otherwise, there's actually no difference. So it'll just be interesting to see how they customize the feed or whether it's just a delivery platform that will make one form easier than the other. So we've got very interesting times in store with the IPL. My gut feel is that digital will have to be different from terrestrial, from the main television platform. So I'm very keen to see how Viacom 18 are going to customize their feeds. But as I said right at the start, it's a great time to be what we loosely call talent in this industry. And maybe for the first time, it will be rather than talent searching for opportunity, it could be opportunity chasing talent.
Yeah, that's a wonderfully put statement. But again, there's a small doubt here that when you talk about the competition here, the fan actually is getting to talk to the experts or talk about the game in a live way. We have the super fan thing coming up for the IPL. We have the fan window and all of those coming into picture. So do we see fan actually interacting on the digital platform with one of the experts? Is that the way going forward?
It could, but I don't see that happening over a longer interval because eventually the game has to be king. So I see that happening at individual levels where somebody might on his or her own Instagram platform or a Twitter spaces start interacting with people. But whether there will be a full-fledged fan interaction along with the game, it could at some point be one of the options that are available if they make that channel open. But it'll always be very difficult to pull off during a live game. It could happen as a program around the main game, but during a game it'll be very difficult to pull off.
As you've again said that the opportunity might be actually searching the talent. So do we see more storytellers coming into picture and people like me who have not played the game at any level, let's say, and we are still getting the opportunity to speak about the game and love what we do. So do you think more of this kind will increase with digital coming into picture?
It could because you need different kinds of people. So it could, especially in the language industry, which is still nascent, it's still growing. The opportunities to make your name will be greater at this stage. So people who get a toe in at this stage and establish a following will find it much easier when more and more people come in because it's easier to look at someone who's got 3 years experience than to look at someone else and try and develop them. So to that extent, yes, but you have to be on your toes at all times because slowly there will be more and more people coming in. The net will be cast wider, so you'll have an advantage for a while, but you have to ensure that you create your own image and keep that advantage running longer.
Do we see any cross commentary happening? So, for example, one expert coming in for 1 hour or something in the vernacular space and just interacting to make it more interesting?
That could well be. Could easily happen. It could easily happen because in the digital format, I wonder how free flowing it will be. Because look, it's not digital like the way a Cricinfo or a Cricbuzz do it, which is that digital is only doing in the intervals between games. Here it is during the game. So the game is always king. So if the game is always king, within that game, how you're doing it will be interesting to see. If they have a big revenue model, then they could do it between overs. Between overs is a wonderful phase in a cricket match which we don't always see. But yeah, I'll be very interested in seeing there could be quite a few innovations.
So, would you be doing any language commentary? Because your fans ask you to speak in Telugu, your fans ask you to do a video in Telugu. Is that going to happen?
No, it wouldn't be fair because I'd run out, my vocabulary will get over very, very shortly. So it wouldn't be fair. So I think as far as I'm concerned, Hindi or I'd love to do it in my local dialect.
अपन की भाषा अपन अपने जबान में करेंगे.
हाँ, अगर वैसे ज़ुबान में हिंदी कर लिया तो कर ले सकते हैं, लेकिन जो है दूसरी ज़ुबान में थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
Right. For the fans, you're the voice, so everybody wants you to speak a Telugu dialogue. I'll just say a small one, and it is not new for you. You have been there in Hyderabad, and you also seen Telugu movies. I'm sure.
కానీ మోడర్న్ మూవీనా పాత మూవీనా?
మోడర్న్ మూవీనే.
మోడర్న్ మూవీ నేను చూడలేదండి.
బాహుబలి చూసే ఉంటారు కదా.
బాహుబలి ఒకసారి టీవీలో చూశాను, మరి ఒకసారి ఆర్ఆర్ఆర్ చూశాను, కానీ ఆర్ఆర్ హిందీ డబ్బింగ్ లో చూశాను, నేను తెలుగులో చూడలేదు. ఒకసారి మరి వెళ్ళి తెలుగులో చూడాలి.
సూపర్.
కానీ అంత తెలుగు మాట్లాడాను కదా ఇప్పుడు, మరి ఇంకా డైలాగ్ ఎప్పుడు ఎందుకు?
ఒక డైలాగ్ అంటే బాగుంటుంది అనేది, ఇఫ్ యూ డోంట్ మైండ్ సార్.
నాకు తెలియదండి డైలాగ్.
ఐ విల్ జస్ట్ రిపీట్. So it's like the Bahubali, Mahendra Bahubali in the last says, "Ide na maata శాసనం." So you're the voice.
ఇదే నా మాట శాసనం.
Super. Thank you so much. Adi koncham. Oh, there you go.
ఇదే నా మాట శాసనం.
Oh, super. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this, and thank you for being very kind. Thank you so much.